I see the Lord, and His train fills the temple.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Terry, and I'm here with Wendy. She's one of our church members, and she's going to try to stump the pastor today with some questions. And in addition to the questions that she has a little testimony. How long have you been in the church here?
About 4 years.
4 years
now.
You're from Honduras, right?
I am from Honduras. Yes.
And she's married to an Anglo guy.
Yes.
And so when they first came to church here, usually in our church, because we do the ministry of deliverance, people come into my office for deliverance. And of course, Wendy came in and we did some healing and deliverance for her.
Amen.
And then I think you had some struggles along the way, even after deliverance. So that's the other thing, is that deliverance is not a cure-all. A lot of times people think, well, if I get delivered, I'm going to be perfect. I'm never having more problems. And that's just not the case. Yeah. And really, deliverance is kind of the beginning. It's not the end. It's the beginning of getting everything in order in your life. It's the beginning of the sanctification process. And so sometimes you can get delivered, and sometimes you can fall back. So you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what you went through, and some of the things that you were dealing with, and then how it came back, and how you finally got free.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you, Pastor, for the opportunity to be here. And I would like to share this because I was praying about it, and the Lord just, I was just sharing with David that sometimes the Lord guided you to do something, and I just want to be obedient, right? I came to PTW about 4 years ago. The first 6 months, I was doing great. I was doing good. I was receiving the word. I was just doing really good, but I didn't close a couple doors. And I was dealing with some struggles, with some personal struggles. I was separated from my husband. He was in rehab too. And I remember that, when was this? I fell, and especially with alcohol. Mm-hmm. And the Lord brought me to the scripture on Matthew 12:42-45. And you talk about that this past Sunday. Mm-hmm. And it's when the spirit gets out of the body, but then he goes around searching a place to rest, and then he comes home, and home is ready, but he brought another 7 spirits. So for me, it was like that, because he brought depression, he brought anxiety. That spirit brought suicidal, that I ended up in the hospital. Wow. And so, that's pretty much my testimony. Then we have more deliverance with you, and I believe that the Lord set me free.
Amen.
But it cost me like a lot, because I didn't, like I said in the beginning, I didn't close the doors completely. Yeah. I was like 1 foot here and 1 foot in the world still.
Yeah. Right. So. Well, that's the thing that people need to understand about deliverance, because like when people see it in the Bible, they see the demon leaves and everybody looks good and everybody's fine, but it doesn't always go into all the details. You don't know maybe what happened later on. But the real issue is not the demons, it's not the deliverance, it's really getting the heart right with God in every area. So sometimes you can deliver someone, in this case maybe she was delivered from alcohol, but if you don't get to the root, and sometimes that root is not easy to find. Sometimes we think we got it, but we didn't. And so that's why John the Baptist came first to prepare the people through repentance. And he said the axe is laid to the root of the tree. So it's very important that we get down to the root, And I think with Wendy, at first we didn't get to the root, but later on, she really came to I remember sitting in the service, and you were sitting on the second row, and it's really like a true salvation experience. And I think many times people think they really committed 100% to the Lord, but maybe they didn't. And they're not truly completely born again. And in this case, that's when everything, I think, with you began to change. And she really began to seek the Lord, and she came back from more deliverance. And this time it's like a vaccination it took, you know. She didn't have to get revaccinated again. And so I think that's the key thing, finding that root. In fact, this week, I've been teaching on deliverance starting this past Sunday. And I prayed for 5 different people this week already, and 5 different deliverances. And one particular deliverance is somebody's been here for quite a few years, and we prayed for them quite a few times and seen a lot of deliverance, but we never got to the root. And I didn't even know what the root was. I thought we had gotten there, but when they came in, they told me about something that had happened to them back when they were a teenager. Well, I'd never heard that story before. And when they explained it, we talked about it, we prayed, and we kind of got an answer on what was going on. And then we started praying, and that spirit manifested very strong and very powerful because it had been in there for like 20-something years. Oh, wow. And they got delivered. It wasn't an easy thing, but that thing came out. But it had been hiding in there and been kind of masquerading and been really operating in that person's life and keeping them from what God really desired for them. And that's what the demons do. They keep you from being who you should be as a believer or as a wife or as a mother. They condemn you. They talk to you. They make you do things that you don't want to do. They won't let you do the things you want to do. And so it's very, very important that I think the body of Christ go through deliverance. I think it's one of the first things. Yes. And I guess when you came here, I don't know if you knew anything about deliverance at that time. Or
Not really. I actually have something else to share. I never shared this with you before, but I remember I came here with Adam and Caro for Wednesday night service, and I remember this clearly. I was in the cafeteria, and I never say hello to you or anything because I was just so bitter and angry. That day I was actually angry at something. I forgot my baby's bottle and, a chaos before I got here. But I remember I was gonna say hello to you, and my stomach got just like, I got so bad nauseous. And I was just like, whoa. And I remember Adam was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Later on, I knew it was all the things that I got with me, Yeah. I don't know if I guess.
No, I don't think you ever told me about that. Yeah, but that happens a lot. The demons, sometimes when they're confronted, or they know who we are, and they recognize the Spirit of God. They recognize authority and all that sort of stuff. So I've had that happen, before, and a lot of times when people come into my office, like this week, we prayed for someone that had Santa Muerte, and I've been dealing with that quite a bit. Lots of people from Mexico have tapped into that, and that spirit was very anxious, and it told the guy to get up and leave, and it tries to make you run. And that's why a lot of times when people come to church, and especially if you're preaching on deliverance or if you have that kind of ministry, they get very nervous because they know, they just know. And they want to run you out of the service. In fact, this one that I prayed for Sunday, he was in the deliverance class, and he got up and left. The demons ran him out of the class. And so that's very common, because the demons know, and they don't want to be around that. So they'll either hide out and make you think they're not there, or they'll get you very agitated and nervous and want to make you run or want to make you hit somebody. You didn't want to hit me, did you?
No.
Sometimes they want to hit you, and so. But they know. I was in Piedras Negras once. We were ministering in a church down there. And there was a demon that we're ministering to a woman that had a demon, and this thing was very, very violent, very vocal, and it starts yelling at me, and it says, "I hate you." And I said, "Why do you hate me?" "Because you're a son of God," Wow. And so they hate the children of God, the sons of God, you know. They hate anybody that has spiritual authority, and they hate you. They want to destroy you, you know. But I remember when Wendy came and the process that she went through, but she was very determined. And you had to be very determined. You have to be a woman of strong convictions, you know. We call it that, you know. And to be able to persevere and go through the process. And I think a lot of times people think about deliverance. It's like, well, you come in and you say, come out in the name of Jesus and everything's fine and I'm ready to go. But it's just not like that. It's a lot more to it than that. And especially today, we've had 2,000 years of time for demons to access the people of God, you know, in the church, and they've not been addressed in general. I'm not going to go into it today, but we're going to be talking about can Christians have demons, probably in my next class on Sunday. And then I will go into Christians having demons and all that. But I think that's been one of the problems, is that the church doesn't believe that Christians can have demons. So the devil is very happy in church, and he's willing to go to church, but he knows he's not going to be confronted. And so the church has been demonized for so many years. And so now, in generation after generation, and so now we're struggling trying to get people free, and that's why people have trouble in their marriages, have trouble with their families, have trouble with addictions and things like that, because the demons, they won't let you do what you're supposed to do. So it's very important, you know, and your testimony is really a testimony to the grace of God, you know, and that, you know, you can know this, that when you get delivered, that's because God has had mercy on you, and God's with you. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. And there's millions of people who would give anything to have deliverance. And I always tell people this: when you get delivered, you need to realize that God has been very gracious to you, and that He has His hand on you. The fact that you are able to get to that place of getting deliverance.
Amen.
So, do you think? Did you see the change in your life the second time around, and how you were able? Doesn't mean you're free from problems. No. You know, it doesn't mean
actually you can have more.
You
sometimes.
can have actually you can, because once you become a threat, and once you really start walking right, He comes after you even harder. So that's why you have to be very careful. You know, and I know He's come after you through a lot of different ways, and you've had to fight, but you've done, I would say, pretty good, really good, as a matter of fact.
Let me tell you, Pastor, I was talking to someone the other day, and I was just telling that person, like, when you are free from, in my case, alcohol, you fight that spirit from outside now. Because I remember the times when I was fighting the spirit that it was inside of me.
Yeah.
It was just like, for me, it was no way to control myself. I wanted a drink. I was gonna make everything possible, do my chores at home, do whatever I need to do, go to work. But before bed, I have to have my drink. You know, that was how that strong spirit was in me. It was just like I was determined to, I'm gonna drink tonight. You know. And I remember many times trying, like, no, I'm not gonna do it. But never, I was never successful. But now, the temptation, the enemy, the spirit comes from outside, and I rebuke it, and I know.
You know where it's coming from.
I know. Yeah. So it's different.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what people need to understand, and I try to explain it. That when you get delivered, that thing is going to try to come back. It goes looking for a place, and the best place is where it used to live. It's going to come back to its own house, and it's going to talk to you from the outside and make you think that it didn't go. And then all it does is get you into unbelief and doubt, and next thing you know, it comes right back in. But, you know, after a while, after it's tried long enough, it gets tired, you know, and it'll quit, you know. When I got saved, I had alcohol issues, you know. I drank a lot. But God delivered me almost immediately from the alcohol. And honestly, I never struggled with it, never have. It's been 40-something years. And I've never had any problems with it, because I got totally free of it, you know. And so that's one of the reasons you can know that you're free because you don't have to fight it. You know, when you're still not free, then you have to fight it. You know, but when you get totally free, it just, you know, it leaves. And but you know, you little by little you possess the land. So there's some things you get free of, and there's other things you continue to fight. You know, and it's kind of an ongoing process. To me, deliverance is a lifestyle. You know, just like sanctification, it's something that, you know, if you need it, you may need it. You may be fine this year, and 2 years from now, there may be something that pops up, and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was there. And then you say, hey, I need deliverance. So it's kind of to me, it's a lifestyle, you know, and that's what Jesus came to do, is to set us free. And he's done that with you. And I know it's changed your life, because I remember the struggles you had. I mean, you're in and out, up and down, back and forth, you know, and you know, it wasn't easy for you.
No,
you know,
it wasn't.
And
but like you said before, it was I take the decision, and I remember coming to you. Before that, I remember falling asleep in the services, and you know, like coming hangover and battling and wanted to change. But also, when I was on the services, there was the Spirit stopping me from really, truly understand what you were preaching.
Yeah.
So I remember that day I was so tired. I was like, I need to do it, Pastor. And I wait for you, and I said, I need you to help me to pray. I remember it was October 1st, 2023.
I remember the day when I really feel like that's the day that Wendy really said, you know, I'm ready to give everything, you know. And I think that's the key for deliverance, is really to surrender. You know, when you really surrender, then God sees your heart, and he's going to do things, you know. Because otherwise, if you're not really at that place and you do get delivered, you'll multiply the demons. And I tell people that. I said, I don't want to multiply your demons, you know. So you need to make sure when you come in here that you got to live for God. This is not just, I want to get my demons out and then I can go do what I want. It's not that way. It's like, you better be ready to live for God, or otherwise you're going to get worse instead of better. And I think that's one of the reasons sometimes God delays deliverance in people, because he has mercy and says, you know, I'm not going to deliver you because I know what's going to happen if I do. And you got a little taste of that, and you went, oh my God, don't want this anymore.
No, they almost killed me.
Yeah.
They almost killed
tried
me.
to.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, that's and ultimately that's what the demons want to do. They want to destroy your life. They want to kill you. Actually, they want to take you to hell. Because I had a situation years ago in Guadalajara. I don't know if I shared this before or not. I don't remember, but I'll share it again anyway, because it's a good story. I was doing a conference in Guadalajara, and a girl comes by and comes into the service, and I'm preaching, and God pointed her out to me, and I called her up on the platform, which I typically don't do, and started praying for her, and the demons manifested. And to make a long story short, she got there by accident. She was looking for another church, and she actually got there, but it wasn't by accident, because the Lord knew. And the demons actually told me that, I said, what is your purpose? And they said, we're going to take her to hell. We're going to take her to hell. And and she was a Christian, you know. And they said, we're going to take her to hell. That's our job. And that's really what they want to do. So it's really time for the church to wake up. I think that's one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast. One of the reasons we're kind of putting ourselves out there, knowing that this is controversial, and you're always going to be second guessed when you talk about this. You know, is that the church has got to get free. And the church is not a vital force as it was at one time, you know. And I think the church in America needs to rise up and get strong. And I think as long as the devil has his way in the people, then the church is never going to be really strong. So it's important that we get this message out. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this. And hopefully some pastors will get this, and maybe they'll want to know how to get into this ministry, and maybe we can help them. Or maybe there's some people that need help, and they'll come here or seek help somewhere, you know. So, but it's always good to have testimonies. I think it's important for people to know that someone like yourself who didn't know anything about this, you know, you come from another country, you're here kind of, even though you're married, you're somewhat alone. Your husband's in rehab because he's kind of got his issues too, you know. And but you were willing to go through the process and fight for your marriage, you know, and it's not an easy thing. you know.
Yeah, amen.
It's not an easy thing. I know you watched the class on Sunday, and you had maybe a couple of questions. Any questions you want to ask about some of the teachings?
Yes.
Make them easy, girl, okay.
All right, you say something about that demons can fake deliverance.
Yes.
Right? I would like to know how
they do
and
it.
why.
Yeah. Well, they want to make you think they're not there. So the first thing they do is a lot of times they'll hide. That's one of their techniques. And you start praying, nothing happens. And you think, well, nothing's there. So I learned this over the years, and I just say, well, I know they're there, because most of the time I know they're there. And I just stay after it and keep on until finally I get them to come up. But then sometimes the demons speak and sometimes they don't. I never have understood the difference in that, why some speak and why some don't. I don't know the answer to that. If somebody knows that, they can call me or text me and let me know, what's going on. I don't understand that. But some talk and some don't. And many times the demons will say, okay, I'm leaving. I said, okay, go. Okay, I'm going. And I say, come out in the name of Jesus, and they'll kind of bend over the waist back and cough a little bit, and they look like they came out. And then I'll look at the person, and I can tell by looking sometimes, like, something's not right here. And I'll go back after it again, and they'll start laughing. No, I didn't leave, I didn't leave. I was just faking it, So yeah, they can fake deliverance, and they'll make you think they've left when they haven't, and they can fake the coming out, and sometimes even people will fake it, which I don't know why they do that, but I've had some that actually fake it, So there is that, they'll talk to the person and make the person fake it, and sometimes they will actually fake it. So you have to be very discerning.
And they'll do that so that you think they're gone, and then you're not going to pursue them. And
Yeah.
get the person free.
Yeah, they want to make sure that you quit, and then a lot of times you'll cast something out of someone, maybe 2 or 3 or however how many, and you think, well, nothing's manifesting, so I got them all out. But that's not the case. You have to just keep going until nothing else comes up, And so a lot of times I do what I call a spiritual X-ray, and I'll pray and say, in the name of Jesus, there's something else in the person that God's calling to judgment. I call you up and command you to manifest yourself and come to attention, something like that. And I'll stay after that till I feel like I've done what I need to do, and they'll start popping up, So a lot of times you think that you've got the person totally delivered, but they're not. There's more in there. So typically there's more than just 1 or 2. There's a lot. And you just keep going until you get to the place that you feel in your spirit that you've done what you need to do. It may not mean that you got everything out in that particular session, but you did what you needed to do that day, and then there may be another time you come back for the next round, Because sometimes, because the spirits have occupied so much of that person's life, if you clean the house all at once, it's like the person is kind of lost. They don't even know who they are, because the demons have kind of taken on their own personality in the person, and they're like, I don't even know who I am now. And so sometimes the Lord doesn't totally deliver you at once. It's in Deuteronomy, I think, 7, he says, when you go in to possess the land, the Lord will remove the enemy little by little, lest the beasts of the field come in and overtake the land. So sometimes you have to get some of the land cleared and delivered so you can occupy that part of your life. Say it's alcohol. If we cast out 10 different demons of addictive areas or different areas that you're struggling with, you may not be able to handle all that at once, So sometimes he'll do a few at a time. You occupy that, you get strong in that area, then he'll go to the next area. And little by little, cleanse the land. So that's kind of the way I've seen it work, So most people that you pray for, you'll pray for them more than once. It typically is not just a one-shot deal. At least that's what I've seen over the years, And I've been doing it about 30 years. So I pray for most people. I pray for them more than once. Some I've been praying for a lifetime.
And actually, you have a you have a way to work. Like I remember when I fill up my questionnaire, it goes deep on your past, it goes
Right.
deep on your childhood. So for those that don't know like how deliverance or your appointments works, that is I think is really helpful, because I remember I write it when I was like filling the questionnaire. I was just like remember things. I was like, this happened. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you forget.
You know, and it's like okay. So I think that's really really good.
Yeah.
Because you have your system.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah, we came up with that years ago because to do deliverance can be a lengthy process, and you have to interview the person, ask questions about their life, what happened to them. So it takes a long time. So we did the questionnaire so that they fill that out before they come in. I can go through that, and after looking and analyzing the questionnaire, I know pretty much what's going on, and I know where to go. I know what to do. So it saves a whole lot of time. So that's one of the reasons that we do that. We do deliverance at the altar on Sundays, and when I go out in Missionsville, we do that too, and we see a lot of deliverance at the altar. But sometimes, because the time limitations and you got so many people, you're not always able to do a thorough job, you know, when you're doing the deliverance at the altar. So that's why I always encourage the people that we pray for to, you know, make a follow-up appointment. Let's go in and make sure that we really done the job properly, you know. So we do a lot of appointments, you know, but we also do it at the altar. And but many times you just don't have the time, you know, to get everything done there at the altar. So that's why we do that. But it's kind of a method that we develop. I'm sure a lot of other deliverance ministries do something very similar. It's kind of like a doctor that asks you to fill out a medical history. We kind of ask you to fill out your spiritual history, you know.
I have one more question. What is the difference between a spirit inhabit the soul and the other one inhabit just the body?
Yeah, that's a very perceptive question. And you know, I guess you have to look at the definitions, you know, of what the soul is. The soul is basically, most people call it the mind, the will, the emotions, you know. So obviously the demons control emotions, and they can be in your emotions, you know. They're in your body, but they inhabit the emotions of your person, you know. And the mind, obviously they're in the mind because they talk to you, you know. They talk to you up here. So so that's when we're talking about the soul, it's the mind, the will, the emotions. The will is another thing. I think it's in Thessalonians, it says, I pray that God will grant you repentance, leading to the knowledge of truth, that you'll escape the snare of the devil, having been held captive by him to do his will. So in other words, when your will can be in captivity, because if you're in captivity to do his will, that means your will is not being done and God's will is not being done. So they can actually control your will, because like Paul said, the things I want to do, I don't do. I have a will to do this, but I don't do it. And the things I don't want to do, I do, you know. So his will, you know, your will can be captured, you know, which is part of your soul. So in that respect there, they can control those things. You know, just like you didn't want to do the alcohol. You know, your will was not to, but he had you in captivity to do his will. But he said, I pray that it will grant them repentance. So when the repentance came, then you got your will back. And so I think that's why it's really important for people to understand the message of repentance, because that's the key. Repentance, forgiveness, confession, you know, that's the key to deliverance. So that's kind of the way that works.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Pastor.
Sure, good. Well, I appreciate you coming. You always have good questions, and very perceptive too, you know, not to have been in the gospel that long and not to have been in our church that long and understanding, you know, the ministry of deliverance and how this works. You're very perceptive. So I appreciate you. You're always very encouraging. So it's good to have you.
Thank you, Pastor, for your help.
All right, blessings.
Blessings.
Now my guilt is gone, and my sin has been forgiven. Thank you, Lord.